someone has clearly just tried to kill Jordan Shanks. He's extremely upset. It's not something he can make a gag about.
Well, obviously we don't know who did it. There's a long list of suspects. My mind's racing as to who it is.
Charges have been laid over an alleged Bondi arson attack on the home of YouTube personality Jordan Shanks.
This is Friendlyjordies, and he was almost killed because he was reporting on a story. He is a journalist, he is a YouTuber, he is a politically minded individual. He's probably the only person in my country, Australia, who is making people care about politics. And yes, he loves the left-wing government here, and that is a disgrace. But he is also my friend. And when I found out that someone was willing to murder him, allegedly, just because of a story he was trying to break, it made me think a lot of different things. And that's what this video is about. In November 2022, Friendlyjordies, or Jordan Shanks, was the target of 2 firebomb attacks at his Bondi residence, which were treated at the time as suspicious or arson attacks. The first fire was the 17th of November, a small fire, which caused a little bit of damage to his and the adjacent property. But the big fire was the 23rd, a week later, almost like the first one was a warning and the second one was the real attack. This engulfed the veranda, the front door, and parts of the house, damaging it severely and also affecting the house right next door. And thankfully, both times, Friendlyjordies or Jordan Shanks was not at home. So what was the motive? Why would someone attack him? Was it because, was it like me? I get a lot of death threats. I get a lot of anger. Was it because he was making videos about fat trans lesbians who are also feminists? No, it was because Jordan allegedly linked someone to some undertakings that were not overly legal, or at least were very dodgy, and that also had something to do with some other dodgy alleged individuals. Now, I'm not even going to say the name of the video that he made on YouTube, but it got a lot of views. It was eventually taken down because of the death threats. And usually when that happens, someone's so pissed off that they might be losing cash, it usually points to, well, you can draw your own conclusions. Okay, I'm not even going to say anything. Why? Because I don't want to get fucking firebombed. But it is widely believed that these attacks were linked to that particular video, or at least videos he had made in the past. Time goes on, and a man by the name of Tufi Jr. Tahisi Alua, who was described as an associate of a criminal network known as the Aladdin Network or Crime Family, was arrested and charged with 2 counts of destroying or damaging property by fire. Now, he then pled guilty and was sentenced just recently to 4 years in prison. 4 years. That's okay, let's break character of me fucking revealing the news. That's fucking mental. 4 years for doing that. What if Jordan was at home? What if his neighbors were affected by the fire? What if someone died? You can't just burn someone's fucking house down. You wonder in this country why there's so much crime and the crime's rising. This is why, because people get away with shit. 4 years is fuck all. It goes on to say that this young dude, or I don't know how old he is, but Tufi Jr. had spent a lot of time in prison. Mate, if you spend a lot of time in prison, 4 years is fucking nothing, right? If you spent your whole life there, yeah, another 4 years, okay, I got shelter, I got food, I've got sort of routine, I'm back in jail, who gives a shit? You need to set examples of people. You need to lock motherfuckers up. You can't be doing this shit. You can't fucking burn people's houses down. Jesus. That's not outrageous to say. And if anyone from these crime families or anyone who knows this guy is watching this and going, oh, this Butterfield better shut the fuck up, I'm sure you agree that you can't just fucking burn people's houses down. There was a second man who was involved in this as well, and he was the getaway driver, allegedly, but the charges were dropped and he was given bail at the time. Strict bail conditions, and people were really pissed off at this, and they rightfully so. So there was a second man who was the alleged getaway driver, But the case was dropped against him by the prosecution because the evidence was lacking. But at the time, when they thought he was involved, they just let him walk under strict bail conditions. Another mad thing to do. Now, I think the best way to get an understanding of how this video affected the people involved, let's have a look at what Friendlyjordies posted yesterday. He posted a video called "They Tried to Kill Me," which is a very horrific thing for anyone to say. Imagine having to make a video or a post, or even on your own Facebook, just your personal Facebook or your Instagram, saying, "They tried to kill me." This is a very full-on thing for anyone to deal with. So let's have a look at what Jordies had to say. Let's go through it, and then let's react to it as we watch it. I haven't watched this yet, so let's see what he has to say.
Some not so breaking news. One of the guys that firebombed my house back in 2022 has been sentenced to 5 years in prison.
5 years, not 4 years. My apologies.
Now, I'm grateful to the judge, the Arson squad, and the financial crimes unit for all their hard work in securing this little bit of justice. That was a Herculean slog for the investigators.
I will say this. These people, the police obviously wanted to get a result. And the problem with, when I was in New York, I had my security guy that I was with in New York. He was a NYPD officer. We're talking about Charlie Kirk's, the attack that happened on him. And he said, what a lot of people don't get is the amount of effort that has to go into getting evidence before you charge someone. Little things like if you see someone, like, you know how the Charlie Kirk shooter, he was on CCTV footage. Like, for you to actually get that footage, it's not just given to you. You got to get warrants. You got to do all this type of stuff. You got to go through the right processes. So there's a lot of effort that goes into getting a conviction. And the issue isn't with the conviction. They were successful in that. It is the sentencing, I think, in this regard.
This is hardly a definite end to this saga, and there are a few things that really need to be said in wake of this conviction. The person convicted of the firebombing is a man by the name of Tufi Jr. Tuisi Alua. I don't know if I'm saying that name correctly, and frankly, I don't care. I've never met Tufi Jr.
Yeah, fair enough. Why would he care? He tried to fucking firebomb.
I've never mentioned him in videos before. In fact, before he was charged, I'd never even heard of his name, nor do I hope to hear it ever again.
I did read a bit about Tufi, and he said that he was sorry, which I think is good. He also said he spent too much time in jail. They also said that he had a horrible upbringing and stuff. And that, it's easy to say that, oh, too bad, mate, Fair. It's a fair thing to say. But also, I think that does really comment on the importance of being a good father figure, or having good father figures or male figures in your life, particularly as a young man. Like, obviously it's important for young women to have the same, but that's not what we're talking about here. He said he had a tough childhood. I don't know what was involved in that. But whatever that means, it's obvious that it affected him in a very negative way. And then he's gone on to do negative things. He said he spent too much time in prison in his life. And, we just really need to look after the young men in this community, in our communities all over Australia and the world. There obviously is a massive difference between the amount of women that commit violent crimes and the amount of men that commit violent crimes. And we really need to be able to look after these dudes. But that's a whole different video. That's a whole different subject. But I think it's important to note that everyone starts off as this, perfect, clean slate. And it's what we do as parents and the community around these people that affects them into who they become, positively or negatively.
It does, however, open a big question, a question which was not satisfactorily answered in court, and perhaps even more shamefully, not examined by most of the media. Why would a man with no connection to me whatsoever go to the effort of stealing a Mercedes, cloning number plates, surveilling my house, and then setting that house on fire?
That's a big job. That's not just like let's send him a warning sort of thing. That's a professional move, right? Cloning number plates, stealing cars, surveillance.
I think I know the answer. I'd wager some prominent defamation lawyers, property developers, and politicians.
No comment on that. I don't agree with Jordan. I don't think anyone was involved.
There were some unsurprisingly cowardly and oblique hints of an answer in the ABC article about the conviction, an article which refers to me as an internet personality.
Shanksy seems to take like a bit of umbrage against being called an internet personality. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. People say, like, to me, they say, oh, you're a YouTuber. I was like, yeah. And what are you? Like, I have comedians say, oh, you're just an internet comedian. It's like, okay, well, you're doing a fucking open mic in front of 4 autistic people. Or I make a video and, between 50,000 and 250,000, 300,000 people watch it. So Suck me off.
Mr. Shanks, who uses the moniker Friendlyjordies online, had mentioned the Alameddine crime network in a video 2 months before his home was set alight. Just mention the Alameddines. A lot of people mention the Alameddines, Anton. The Alameddine crime network might be one of the most prolific gangs in this nation's history. They're nightly news. Some people bank their entire journalistic careers on talking about the Alameddines. They don't get their houses burnt down. How characteristically low from the ABC
Fair.
is.
Because it is, I don't know anything about the that crime family or that network, but I have heard of it before, so it's a fair point.
When even the judge labelled the firebombing as, quote, a professional attack on a journalist. Anton here acts as if it was a coincidence after reading out a BuzzFeed article on a stream. This is not at all to excuse Toofy Jr. He tried to kill someone. He burnt down a house with no regard for not only the other potential occupants, but neighbours, which were the elderly, and for all he knew...
Fair point. You know, like, who lives next door to you watching this right now? Imagine if someone firebombed your house and burned down your neighbours and ended their lives. Like, it's a very hectic situation.
Could have been children. Even worse, because his motives are murky and seemingly transactional, he seems to have just been waved away with he was just the hired muscle. He tried to kill people. He burnt down a house.
Yeah,
Things are a little bit scary in New South Wales, if you ask me. At this point, you can order a firebombing, not only not get caught, but the muscle who does get caught gets about the same time as it takes to do a bachelor's degree. Pretty good risk to reward ratio, if you ask me. Over the past few years, I've faced multiple different criminal investigations and charges over what apparently in New South Wales is a far more serious crime, making YouTube videos.
And Jordies has, and if you haven't followed him, you should really take a good deep dive into everything that he's been through. But he was dragged through the courts, you know, maybe $1 million in legal fees over comments that he was making about a former Premier of New South Wales. And then when someone tries to take his life, there isn't like a massive investigation. It's just like sort of this, you know, run-of-the-mill exercise. And I think that's a massive overlook of what has actually transpired here. And the New South Wales justice system needs to go, hang on, what the fuck's going on? Why are we not spending all of this time and money looking into what happened here and a million different other things? And why are we spending all this time trying to, you know, deal with a YouTuber making YouTube videos? Like, it's ridiculous.
I don't think it's hyperbole to say that there were far more investigative and legal resources thrown at botched attempts to punish me than there were at punishing the firebombers. But the silver lining is that in the court of public opinion, thanks to the brazen violence of the firebombing, an act which to the broader public at least is more depraved than clicking upload, certain politicians, lawyers, police units and judges have been, what's the opposite of vindicated? I'll end this update with some questions for everyone to ponder. How can a man be charged and sentenced to 5 years in prison for a firebombing and the courts get to know nothing about his motives?
Yeah, I think a motive is important, right?
How come when I drive through Sydney I see more cranes than ever bearing the title of the video that I was forced to take down due to the death threats?
I'm not scared to say the name. I'm kidding, I definitely am. I'm not going to say anything.
Why certain politicians like Rose Jackson, who originally condemned the firebombing, albeit in the most...
The police need to fully and urgently investigate whether this was an arson or targeted attack. If so, there needs to be swift action. This sort of thing is disgraceful, dangerous, and needs to be called out upon. That was on the 23rd of November 22. She says, I know Jordan, we went to the same school. I think some of what he says from his video years ago about the WA shark cull is amazing. Some of his stuff is way off and gross, and I strongly condemn it. I think what she's talking about there is videos about... Jordan made a comment about an Aboriginal tree a while ago that gets brought up online all the time. About it was like a particular tree that was important to Indigenous people in a part of Australia. And that's like... Jordan said something on I think it was on a live stream too. Who gives a shit? Fucking, that's got nothing to do with any of this.
Performative Twitter-approved template that not only was mostly about her and how awesome she thinks she is, she also just had to add, right after I was nearly killed, that I'm, quote, way off.
Why is that said then?
And gross. I'll tell you what I think is way off, Rose. Hanging out with and propping up a development company, which
Not
again...
interested in this, Jordan. I don't want to talk about it.
Why do the Alameddines, an organised crime gang, give so much access to certain ABC journalists? Why is the ABC so ardent in defending these certain journalists? And why isn't anyone able to get enough evidence to bring whoever ordered the firebombing into a courtroom? I'll tell you, there's some very strange things happening in New South Wales.
Bro, big video from Shanksy. Yeah, a lot of questions, and I don't know the answer to any of them, but I'm just glad he's all right. Like, this is a crazy thing. And as I said, you know, I get death threats occasionally from fucking psychos, but it's over the most ridiculous shit. Like, this is real. When Shanks makes a video, and not even about this stuff, but about someone's livelihood or whatever, when there's money involved, like, that's real serious business. And no wonder he gets, you know, threats from people when when we're talking about millions and dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, who knows, or when he's talking about politicians. He's made a lot of video about powerful people in this country, but he and people like him need to be not, you know, squashed, not hidden, not referred to as an internet personality, some sidelined individual. He is probably the most prominent investigative journalist in this country, other than people like Michael West. But he is seen as a bit of a joke. And that's because he makes other videos where he, you know, he reviews, you know, fucking petrol station toilets and shit like that, which I think are funny. And I stole his idea. And I put it in my ads when I go to different towns and do shows. Suck me off, Jordan. But yeah, it's a real shame, and I hope he's okay, and I hope he feels some sort of justice, but I don't think he does. And yeah, it's I think what he does, like, you know, forget about the whole connection between crime families and all this type of stuff. He has done a lot of good. Now, I'd like to finish this video by saying there's no doubt that Friendlyjordies is a Labor shill. He's a left-wing shill. He definitely gets paid by them. But also, I think he's going to come to the dark side. I think he's going to move to the middle of politics in this country. I think he's going to start going a little bit right-wing. I look forward to that. I think he's going to change his name from Friendlyjordies to Friendly Jared, Jarrad. And that's going to be the big change. He's going to turn heel like John Cena did. Ladies and gentlemen, Beagle motherfucker, peace in the Middle East, me dick stinks. And I'd like to refresh my opinion on all of the allegations in this video. I have no idea. Please don't burn me. I'm a big fan of everybody. And in fact, if you are in part of this video and you want free tickets to any of my shows, you're very welcome to them. Ladies and gentlemen, be a good motherfucker. Peace in the Middle East. Me dick stinks. Toodaloo, au revoir. Bye-bye.